It's time for the blues and the 11 July meeting of the Des Moines City Council Environment Committee. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the June 13 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The minutes are approved. That takes us to item 2, which is the 2024 National Pollution Discharge, I always forget it, elimination system permit process. And I believe the presentation will be given by Tyler Beakley. Take it away.
Great, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council. You're correct. This is our 2024 NPDES permit reissuance, and you did get the acronym right, so thank you there. This is our 5-year permit, so we are at the end of this cycle of the permit, which expires August 1st, and that's when our next permit, which I'm going to present on, becomes live, and we're now under our new permit. At a very high level, this permit is for all surface waters, basically within city limits, which we call our MS4, Municipal Separate Surface Water System, that drain into receiving waters. Those are waters of the state, the sounds, the creek, all of our creeks, and the Puget Sound. This permit allows us to discharge local waters into state waters at a very high level. That's the gist of this permit. So last November, we gave a update to the same committee on the draft permit requirements. These are very similar to now the formal permit in which we're presenting today. So a lot of this information is repeat, and we'll cover it at a higher level. But if you wish to dive deeper, you can certainly ask questions. So the permit's split up into 9 sections. I'm just going to start going through each section and cover the changes to the permit and the new requirements. And let me know if you have any questions along the way. So I'm going to jump into stormwater planning. First new requirement is by December 31st, 2028, we are to implement and adopt a new tree canopy, both policies and goals to support stormwater management and water quality in receiving waters. And Chair, I got your question regarding receiving waters. If I even...
And while you search, the reason I'm asking
Yes.
is that, you know, going back to the airport and so on, I was struck at the time at how often the Corps gets involved in this stuff and how basically the whole basin, they, you know, like where does the creek, you know, these dinky little things end and the receiving waters of the great state begin, just in terms of, that kind of, has any of that kind of stuff changed?
Right, none of it has changed. I have there, I had a printout. I must have forgot it, but I do remember your question, so I'll just read their definition of it. Receiving waters mean naturally or reconstructed, naturally occurring surface water bodies such as creeks, streams, rivers, lakes, wetlands, estuaries, marine waters, or groundwater, to which our stormwater system discharges to. So, to answer your question, this definition has not changed. In our city, it is our creeks and it is the sound.
I ask as, I mean, again, I could be having old guy thing, but I seem to recall some kind of Supreme Court thing where they talked about that.
The wetlands.
Yeah, and I just curious if that's something, you know, to be thinking about apparently not, so.
That's, yeah, definitely a conversation that we can highlight on go more in depth on it later, but I don't think that'll have effect here in the city of Des Moines. That relates to adjoining wetlands to waters of the state and how those are determined and based on the Supreme Court ruling. But so I'll keep going here. On that note, a few council meetings ago, we approved a consultant contract with Parametrics to start meeting this goal and start looking at our tree management policies related to stormwater. And we're getting a head start on that because we're starting this now and it's not due till 2028. And they're going to be working on this through 2025. And really this is a assessment of where the city stands with all our current standards, policies, goals. And they're going to produce some recommendations on what we could adopt. What direction can we go with trees? And then we'll be coming back to the committee once we have more results on that. Next new requirement under stormwater planning is our stormwater management action planning, which is commonly referred to as basin planning. They are now requiring us to choose another basin to select. Last year we selected Lower Massey Creek and Barnes Creek as our high priority basin to make a basin plan in and identify actions to help water quality and flow control in the basin. But before March of 2027, they want us to highlight another basin to create a plan in, or more actions in the same basin. So I don't have a feel exactly on what basin at this point. We're still a ways away from that requirement, but I do know from the efforts we did on the first basin planning, we have a leg up because we've already gone through our assessment where we looked at every basin in the city and a prioritization. So we have all that background data. We can basically do this effort at a cheaper extent than we did it last time because we can build off of that program. And I should start out by saying all these requirements are within our surface water utility. I know budget's a large discussion right now, and all these programs are funded through our enterprise fund. So they're not hitting the general fund. I just want to make that clarifier out there as we're talking budget. I'll jump into the next section of public education and outreach. Most of this section remains the same, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. But what is changing is we need to evaluate our behavior change program and then recommend how to improve it or adopt a new behavior change program. So what that is currently is we're doing spill kits to local businesses, and we're doing post and pre-surveys about their knowledge of stormwater and what to do if a spill occurs. How we are enhancing that currently is we're also going to be providing them spill kit training on actually how to use these kits, and we're going to be focusing on restaurants. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So all this to say is we are ahead of the game on this 2025 requirement where we already have a plan in place now that we're implementing this year, well before the 2025 requirement. And then not on the page, but a smaller requirement is in 2029 to reevaluate this new program we're doing with spill kit training. And then once again, see if there's enhancements or changes we want to make. So that covers public education and outreach. The next one is public and, yes, absolutely.
Sorry. I apologize, can we back up for a second? I have a question with regard to the tree canopy issue.
Yeah.
Does this mean that any actions that we take or programs that we undertake with regard to tree canopy will be coming out of the Surface Water Management Enterprise Fund?
Not necessarily, but potentially. It's too early to give you a full answer on that without seeing the results of our study. There is a large nexus in between tree canopy and stormwater, but I can't for sure say it's all tree related items.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point.
But is that a choice on our part, or is that because there's some restriction that says that we can't use those funds? Because as I understand, the Surface Water Management Enterprise Fund is quite healthy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there would be a choice in some aspects of what to take on with surface water, but some other areas would be limited, related to like street trees in the right of way that are not, or parks trees or certain, there is lines that are drawn where stormwater dollars can't be spent on, but all that needs to be looked at in greater detail.
Thank you.
Yeah. So public involvement and participation, this is a requirement just for permittees to engage the public as we go through planning each year what activities we're going to do to meet the permit, that we engage the public and get feedback from them. Currently we do this online, social media, city currents, make an announcement at council that offering public what a new requirement they're having us highlight is for overburdened communities, and I actually have a definition highlighted because it is a long definition, but I'll try to paraphrase it. These are vulnerable populations in the city that suffer socioeconomic factors such as unemployment, high housing, transportation costs relative to income, limited access to food, and so on and so forth. Sensitivity factors such as low birth weight or higher rates of hospitalization, and then also vulnerable populations that include racial, ethnic minorities, low-income populations, populations disproportionately impacted by environmental harms, and populations of workers experiencing environmental harms. All this to say is that ecology is wanting cities to focus in on these neighborhoods, these areas within our cities that may not have access to comment like other areas of the city might have. So we're going to look at looking at it a way to document how we identify these communities on a map level, and then relook at our outreach strategy if there's a better way to target these communities. I feel like we're just looking at sort of a temperature check how we're doing as a city. The city currents that's mailed out to every residence is a great way that I think we're doing to spread the word that people can come on and comment. What I think we can improve, a recommendation is more offering in-person comment. Right now we point them to online commenting, but have an opportunity for even mail back a comment, maybe even pick up comments at a drop box at libraries, or offer them to come in and drop off. So to be determined. We have till 2026. It is 2 years away, but it feels like tomorrow, so we'll be looking at that. I'm going to jump into mapping requirements. Question?
Sure. May I ask a question?
Oh, by all means, just jump in.
Thank you, appreciate that. I had a quick question. Now, regarding the existing campaign that's listed here versus new campaigns, are the subject of the campaign dictated, or are those things that you can identify as an interest and a priority for you, like the spill kit? Can you tell me more about how they get chosen?
Absolutely. So we've been doing the spill kit program since nearly I started, 2014, and we've been doing it annually and building on it. That was selected by opportunity of, we got a part of a grant. So the first few years we did the spill kit program, it was covered. So that's just throwing it out there. That's how we selected this program, and we've sort of stuck with it by seeing its success. Now, the permit does allow us to choose a different audience. It doesn't have to be businesses. It could be the public. It could be students. It can be, for one example, is Burien, Highline, and SeaTac use Stormfest as their behavior change for students. We're just doing that in extra. So we highlight this spill kit campaign. But part of these evaluations, there's an opportunity to change how we're doing it. So we're not forced into this by any means. This was a staff selection.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So going into mapping, we're going to have to map by 2028. Just making sure I have the right note here. Outfalls and discharge points that have stormwater treatment or water quality facilities serving them. So currently our map just shows infrastructure. We have ponds, vaults, and tanks everywhere throughout the city, but this is going to highlight what zones those treatment facilities are treating. And you'll kind of see bubbles on the map of, okay, this area is treated, this area is treated, this has flow control. And our consultant that we just got on board, they're going to be helping to produce this map as well ahead of that 2028 deadline. The next mapping requirement is to map tree canopy on public properties. And our consultant, again, is going to be helping with that well ahead of the deadline. And then the last one that's not on the list, but I did catch today, is mapping requirement for those overburdened communities that I said. We're now going to have to put that on our GIS to highlight where those overburdened communities are on our map. And that I believe that is due by 2026.
I'm sorry, did you say you are or you aren't?
We do have to do that by 2026. We have not started that yet or have a contract to start that yet.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So next section is illicit discharge detection and elimination. That's a long title for just saying really spill response and preventing pollution to enter our system. No new changes. So at the draft we presented last time, it's the same requirement that we presented them. We need to assess commercial, industrial, and multi-story residential structures constructed between 1950 and 1980 for PCBs containing materials. If they do contain those materials, there needs to be procedures in place to eliminate wash water from those buildings from entering the system. Now this, I'll be honest that we have not dove into how we're going to meet this requirement yet, and how we're going to be talking with our regional partners on how they're going to be tackling this requirement. As this assessment, there is a guidance document of how to conduct the assessment, but it's nothing we've done as a city to date. So we'd have to develop a program and procedures on how we want to tackle this. So more to come on that. That may be a one-off environment committee topic in the years to come. Going to controlling runoff from construction sites, we do have a new stormwater manual, so we adopt the King County manual. We're planning to adopt the next King County manual, and that will come before June 30th of 2027. That, again, is a manual that affects all new development, all redevelopment within the city for stormwater, and what they have to do regarding water quality and flow control. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know the requirements for development are getting more stringent. For smaller developments will now have to implement water quality where they didn't have to before. And again, I will be coming back to committee once we are getting close to adopting that new manual with a more in-depth presentation of changes. So a small update on controlling runoff from construction sites is currently we have to inspect subdivisions and all their facilities every 6 months. Ecology is dropping that to every 4 months. So that's a small impact to our staff, where now it's going to be roughly 3 times a year instead of 2 times. But I suspect we're going to be able to handle that in-house still. And then moving to section 7, continuing to go on, stormwater management for existing development. This is a brand new section. So the way Ecology is framing this is it's a point system. City of Des Moines is assigned a acreage goal of 5.3 acres, and this is assigned based on all jurisdictions. I believe it's 8 acres per 50K population. So ours is, we're less than 50K, so it equaled out to 5.3 acres that we have to meet as a goal. So the way you meet these acreage requirements is you do projects which add new water quality or new flow control, or you street sweep roads and you get acreage credit through that, or you get tree preservation. So you protect trees within the city and you can get acreage credits to meet this 5.3 acres. This is, again, a new requirement, so we're still trying to wrap our heads around it, but I know there's a lot of opportunity projects that are already underway that are going to go towards meeting this requirement, such as Marina Steps, where we're adding water quality, and that's serving a large portion of downtown. I'm assuming that acreage will be able to be credited towards this goal. We're also working with Water District 54 and acquiring a parcel down in Redondo to preserve trees next to Wooton Park, which I believe would go towards meeting this credit, and so on and so forth. So we have till 2028 to meet that goal, and I guess that's all I have on that item right now.
I'm assuming that the formula and calculations are so simple that, but it would be interesting, do you have something that sort of lays out like, a tree versus a particular, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, they have an appendix that outlines how to calculate all this, and it is online. All these, this full permit and all its appendices are on the Department of Ecology website under the Western Washington Phase 2 permit. I can send that to the committee, the links to that,
I just think it's,
for your reading pleasure. Yes.
well, I mean, it's kind of a real thing. You
Yeah.
kind of balance, I mean, you know, value versus, so I'm just always curious with any of this stuff, how people come to these conclusions.
Yeah.
And, because their calculation may not always match the values that, you know, we want to promulgate. And so it would just be nice to.
Got it. Yep. I will follow up and send an email to the committee with the links.
And this includes calculations as to, does it go down as far as what types of trees? The value as far as, yeah, to the tree canopy and that sort of thing?
I would.
Conifers versus
Yeah.
deciduous trees.
Yeah. I don't know that answer. I'd have to dive into that appendix.
Okay.
Yeah. So going on, we have our source control program. That was the newest permit requirement in our last cycle. So they did not update that or add any additional requirements for that section. So there's no proposed there. And then lastly, in operations and maintenance, one of the largest new requirements for all cities and jurisdictions is a street sweeping mandate, where we have always done optional street sweeping in the city, and now they are requiring us to do a certain amount of lane miles a year. I will say the good news is, and it doesn't reflect here as there was basically it got copied, the draft version. So that you're seeing the draft version. I can send the new language in that follow-up email for the new requirements. But our comments, other regional cities' comments got to ecology and they reduced this requirement. Before, it was as you see, where essentially if you look at the requirement F in your packet under street sweeping, it said we'd have to street sweep all roads that drain to surface waters that supported salmonoids. That's every creek in our city. That's every direct outfall to the sound. That's every street in our city, every year. They took that off. They took off a bunch of the other requirements. Now the requirement is to street sweep high traffic roads that are curbed that are designated as arterials and collectors, and roads that are in commercial or industrial areas that are curbed. So a lot less. And this almost fits our current street sweeping program. We might have to adjust it a bit. Currently we spend $125K annually on this program. We'll look at the changes. We need to map our curb lines. We don't have an accurate map of curb lines in the city. That's something we'll have to do to see exactly where we do need to add street sweeping, but I imagine it'll be very similar to the current dollar amount. So I was very pleased to see the final draft of the permit.
Yeah, I mean, am I missing something here? Because there are street sweeping things that go through the neighborhoods.
Yeah, so we currently do it.
Is this a different kind of truck or some?
Nope. We do it optionally as our choice as a city. Ecology is now saying you have to. You do not get a choice to street sweep.
Okay. But it's not a different technology.
No, it's the same trucks. We even have a contract that goes through 2028 that we'll be having potentially to amend, but potentially can just jump right on and just switch the streets around to meet this requirement.
You had a question, Councilmember?
Yes, thank you. It's good to know that we already, for the most part, meet this requirement with our current practice. That's exciting, and hopefully it won't have too many changes that increase that. I imagine that there's some local jurisdictions that may not do the optional street sweeping and maybe would benefit from an ILA and say, hey, we can combine efforts here, and if you're not doing it currently, can we go in together, possibly?
Yeah, potentially. And we do not have our own, I think we used to, as a city, we used to own a sweeper truck and have our own crews do that, but currently we contract that out. But yeah, I know in the past also, just like you mentioned, we did that, I believe, with Normandy Park, and there was agreement between us and shared costs. So absolutely, there's opportunity.
Right, so if you buy the truck, then you can just charge those neighboring cities.
Thank you for the comment. Yeah.
So, So along those lines, does this, I mean, I nag about this every year. Is there a way to get some kind of vague schedule of when they will, you know, which streets they will hit when? Because I hear that from residents all the time, is like, they'd like to know just when. Will this, is there any possibility of making that happen?
Yeah, I think that information is out there. I'm not the one who manages the street sweeping program. That's our CIP manager, Scott Romano, but he does work with MSI, who's our contractor, and they have a schedule and they have maps of which roads they're hitting, which seasons. I don't know if you'll get down to the day.
No,
But-
but people within, let's say, a week or two,
Right.
I get asked that all the time.
Yeah, I think we can take that comment back and see if we can find a way to make that producible and shared online.
Yeah, I think that would be really good.
Before I forget, you also had a question, council member, on the grant opportunity that is shared regionally about air quality.
Yeah,
And that is on our radar, but I don't have any projects lined up that would qualify, so I'm not anticipating applying for my department.
okay. No, I'm just, because, I mean, just circling back to earlier sections, you know, when you talk about the overburdened communities, I mean,
Yes.
I see that on grant after grant after grant opportunity, and so I'm not trying to be annoying, but I see that, and if you go to the port, they have this lovely equity index map thing, which, you know, not trying to tell anybody, but it's basically, you know, it's sort of like a really good thing in terms of demographics, income, and all of that stuff. But the practical matter is that we're already like at the highest rate, like in almost every part of town, you know, on all the different metrics. And so
Right.
it's sort of a funny thing, but we definitely, yeah, so I see overburdened and I go, you know, hey, Tyler,
Yeah.
you know, any grants
No,
out there?
no, it's a great opportunity. I would just say we are at our project maximum as far as staffing to support any more projects. So we just got the Marina Steps grant for the water quality and a few other grants that we're tracking and CIP projects. So it's just not on our radar to apply this cycle. Maybe in future years we can highlight a project and be more prepared for this grant.
Okay, then, one other thing while I'm going, just in terms of the, you know, community thing, if it were possible to integrate your efforts with Highline and Federal Way schools, I just, in terms of, the kids, I will hear from the middle schools that some of the schools don't have like middle school biology type units anymore. Literally, the science element is gone. And if there were a way to create some kind of unit like that, that educated them about the stormwater stuff, and because they, you know, they have the kids, and you have the expertise, and so just however that might work, is that something?
That's on our radar. We get King County conservation dollars each year, and portion of that goes to the Environmental Science Center in Berrien. They offer a program called Beach Heroes and Salmon Heroes, and they offer it to all the schools in Des Moines, and it's up to the schools to take on that program or not. But it is offered to them, and we support those programs. And also, our next item is Stormfest, which we can talk about the ways we're looking at potentially expanding.
Cool.
But that concludes this item unless there's any more questions.
Colleagues.
Yes, okay, so looking at your deadlines, your priority then right now is the public education and outreach?
Let me pull that back up.
You're looking at,
So yeah, we are already on that. We're doing that this summer.
okay,
Yep. As far as what we're going to be targeting, as far as next, because we already have a lot of that in the works. I think we need to start looking at the stormwater for existing development. That is that 5.3 acres requirement, and start learning more about that. We need to start jumping into the PCB evaluation for private development and how we are going to assess buildings and what other regional partners are doing. That's probably the two things we'll be doing in the short term, and the rest of it will come as time progresses.
Okay, so how far along are you on the public education and outreach?
Yeah, so we are, I think they're doing source control
They're about 2 months into it.
2 months into it. So we're already started now on this deadline that's
Right.
July 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, one last thing. I actually was a little surprised that PCB wasn't already, I mean, PCB's been around a long time. So does the state provide you any kind of sort of foreshadowing as to other pollutants that might be, coming down the line? I'm thinking about the port with PFAS and just because there's going to be a growing list of these things, and I'm assuming each test has a certain cost to it, and I don't know, is that?
So, yeah, and just a caveat on the PCV comment is this was already on their list of pollutants of concern. This is just a new source they're highlighting from these buildings that they're highlighting, and they're mandating jurisdictions to now look at this source of pollutant. So coming down the line is, I think, a pollutant related to stormwater and surface waters is the 6 ppdq from tire wear. That's very active in the discussion regionally and has yet to be mandated in any sense for jurisdictions, but I imagine that's going to be coming in the next 5-year cycle.
Okay, I'm not trying to, I'm thinking about just physically like what the cost per test is and just.
Yeah, I don't know yet. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all
Yeah.
right. I think I've beaten on that enough. So any other questions? Then please let us move on to item number 3, which is Stormfest program overview.
All right, this will be quite a bit shorter, but I do have some pictures there for you. We're going to start with the background for any citizens who might not know about Stormfest. It was started 6 years ago. It's an interactive and experiential-based stormwater science educational program. A bit of a mouthful, but it's for 6th grade students. Over the years, it's changed a little bit, but ideally we have the students going through around 5 stations to learn about their local watershed, the animals that live in them, like the streams and whatnot, sources of pollution. They're either learning about pollution for the first time or actually getting a hands-on experience of what it looks like and how it harms the animals. And then also engineering and behavioral solutions, best management practices and whatnot to combat and prevent stormwater pollution. So this was created through an ILA in 2018 with Des Moines, Burien, Normandy Park, King County, and SeaTac. And we also partnered with the Highline School District, the Environmental Science Center, and Environmental Issues. Like I mentioned, the first year was in 2018. 2019 was also at the beach park, in addition to 2018. But with the pandemic, we had to get a little creative. We did it in 2020. We had to cancel due to students not being in school. But in 2021, as everyone, all the students got back into a virtual environment, we offered an online course for them. And then in 2022, we offered a hybrid model where a select number of educators and committee members went to each school, and with masks on and outside and in fresh air, we were able to educate with, I believe, 3 stations instead of the standard 5. But last year, in 2023, we were able to get back to the beach park, which was my first year of involvement with Stormfest, and this year as well. So how did it go? It went pretty well. All things considered, we did have a rainy day, but it was Stormfest, so it was fitting. Like normal years, we had around 1,200 students, so quite a few over 3 days, June 4th, 5th, and 6th. And those Highline School District schools were Glacier, Chinook, Cascade, Sylvester, and Pacific middle schools. And with 1,200 students, we need a lot of help. So in addition to the 6 committee members from the cities mentioned above, we had 17 volunteers, 2 interpreters, which were Spanish speaking, and 42 station educators. So the 5 stations this year and last year as well were stormwater pollution, watershed model, community actions, schoolyard solutions, and a low tide beach walk. And just a little breakdown of what those looked like. The stormwater pollution was a very interactive station where one of the educators would go to the Des Moines Creek and get some micro invertebrates, and the students were able to check just how they were able to interact with them and see their tolerance and the stream health condition. And the educators were able to walk with them through best practices in which they could learn how and to help the watershed out and whatnot. The next one was the watershed model. We have these, I believe, 5 3D what are they actually called? Enviroscape models. And so students got to play around with water at this station where they got to pour down and see where the water went and how that got to the sound. Community Actions was a very popular one. It's a relay race in which students were able to, I believe we had like little poop emojis and whatnot. They'd run and go pick up the emojis and bring it back to their station. And at the end, they were able to create an advertisement for solutions to common stormwater pollutant issues. Schoolyard solutions, they interacted with 2 different forms of pavement, I believe, impermeable and permeable. So a lot of the students didn't even realize what permeable pavement was. And so it was kind of a surprise to them seeing the water flow through it. So a lot more interactive than we were expecting. And another popular one was the low tide beach walk. And the students got to walk around the beach and just have a little bit more fun than being caught up on a station. And they got to observe the organisms on the beach during low tide, which is what we commonly like to surround this. Well, when we pick dates, like next year, we're already looking at when the low tides are going to be, so the students actually get an opportunity to go and interact on the beach. Yeah, like I mentioned before, it was a pretty well organized event. We did have some variables, but we had a helpful committee and also 17 volunteers, which helped out. And we received quite a bit of positive feedback from the students. We have noticed over the last 2 years at least that we're getting more disabled children coming to the event, which is good. We like that, but we need to possibly look at more funding to get these, I don't even know how to describe the wheelchairs, all-terrain wheelchairs, I guess is what I wrote here.
To make it more accessible.
Yeah, they almost have like these big beach ball wheels, and we were able to utilize it last year, but the student, because of the rain, wasn't able to go down. But it was a good learning moment for us to be more prepared for students that are coming. And then some more proposed actions for next year. Our ILA expires this year, and we're kind of afraid some of the local municipalities weren't going to want to be a part of Stormfest anymore just due to budgeting and NPDES requirements. But it sounds like there is quite a bit of buy-in now, so we're going to work on that this summer and into the fall. We also are collecting a lot of data from the students and the teachers, so we're going to get feedback from that on how we can improve and make the event more fun. And then I mentioned, I believe last year we were looking to expand this a bit more from just public schools, and so we're looking at some private schools and possibly homeschools, which might expand the event to 4 to 5 days, but more the merrier. And we're looking at dates now. It's probably going to be the first week of June for next year, and hopefully we'll have some. And that concludes my presentation.
I'll just add a quick note there, and this is more of a thank you to other staff that were involved, but the marina staff were very helpful in accommodating the buses as the kids unloaded, imagining unloading 500 kids into the marina floor and making sure they're heading the right direction. Also, the facility staff were great in helping us into the buildings and all that. And then, of course, our stormwater crew helped out with just set up and tear down, and thanks to Michael for leading the whole thing. So that'll conclude.
Any questions?
You know this one's coming. any chance of including Woodmont K through 8 anytime soon?
That's actually one of the reasons why I was on there. We're going to look into that, and that's going to be something I'm going to voice to the committee.
Okay, and then the other one is, excuse me, the other one is there any future interaction with the Mass Center in this program?
Not planned. I think we have reached out to them in the past to see if there was any potential for them to sponsor a station or come up and be a station. I think that was a while ago in the early days, so maybe there is an opportunity to re-engage them to see if there's more opportunity. Yeah.
It seemed like they're a natural, so.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's the connection's there. So.
Thank you.
Just friends of Saltwater State Park, they're always talking about educational opportunities. They have legit people who do that stuff. I hesitate to, because I just assume that everybody, you know, if there must be some impediment, because, you know, people say they want to do these things, and you wonder, okay, well, you know, how could we possibly make it a little bit, you know, easier, or, you know, but it sounds like you guys are on top of it and are jazzed, and that's really good to hear. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a push for volunteers and educators to, and we do pay our educators that come and volunteer. So anyone in the community is welcome to come, and they get trained on how to teach the kids and that. So we try to broadcast that as much as we can, but it's always a push to get, what is the total volunteer educator, like 40 or 50?
The desired, I think the minimum's 40, so we
Yeah,
got 42.
So it's quite a bit to track down to help out for the event.
42 what? I'm sorry?
Volunteers and educators.
Yeah. It's volunteers. It's the word of the, okay, well, any other questions, colleagues?
I just want to say thank you for highlighting it. I'm glad to hear that there's steam behind it, and you had such a great turnout. So hopefully those community partners and across jurisdictions will come back.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then I guess that concludes the city presentations. We have a couple of minutes, and I always, you know, try to ask if there's any member of the public that would like to make a public comment. Please do so now. Step forward. I see a hand raised. You can go wherever you want, but sure, why not? Project. Well, in any case, please state your name and where you live, and
I'm
go for it.
Michael. I live in Des Moines. Good to see you all. I'm so energized by the presentations I hear from the staff and the great questions you ask, and I'm also really thrilled to have our mayor and Councilmember Mahoney here, both of whom I know are have been very engaged with trees, which of course appeals to my green heart. So just a couple of things I wanted to talk about. We all have gotten through this most recent heat dome. I checked out a book from the library last week called If Mayors Ruled the World. I don't want you to get any ideas. It's more about cities and how, okay, and how effective cities can be when it comes to dealing with seemingly intractable problems. So now I'm going to read it, and then I can talk more because I haven't gotten to it yet. But I had a couple of experiences this week that I just wanted to share with you. Number one was and maybe I'll only think of the one, but I went to the Port of Seattle meeting about the sale of the portion up at West Des Moines Creek Park that the port wants to buy back from the city. And that morning at 4 o'clock, we had thrown the windows open all night long because we don't have air conditioning and it was so hot. And I just had the opportunity to read to the port what happened at 4 o'clock. About 4-ish, jet roared overhead. Our windows were open, so woke me right up. 415, again, 437, 441, 443, 449, 455, 458, 503, 504, 509, 512. And this is in the, with the exception of the 5 o'clock, this is mostly in that window of 12 to 5 when the port says sincerely they're trying to keep air traffic from going over. So I'm reporting that to the Environmental Committee because this is an environmental issue among other things. And I want everyone on the City Council to be aware of that and to try to, and we only know that, you know, the port promises that more air traffic is coming. I have been around long enough to see the port renege on other promises, like the third runway was going to be for inclement weather only, and a bunch of other things. So I think we as a city have to come together as our citizens and so on to be able to comment on that. One other thing that I wanted to report on is that there were 7 or 8 of us from Des Moines who wanted to comment on that sale. And I know it would be a good, you know, chunk of change for the city of Des Moines, but we're concerned. I had worked or had been a volunteer on some advisory parks committee under Patrice Thorell a couple of different times where that area was going to be park. And so with our minimal tree canopy, it makes me really sad that it's going to be yet another big concrete block thing.
Ding!
But I'm not quite done yet.
Yes, but it is 3 minutes, and we have to get ready for the next
But you were afforded courtesy, and I'm going to take 20 more seconds.
Well, okay.
That is that the Port of Seattle referred back to the city of Des Moines in terms of whether or not we should, what was it, JC, because you were there? Referred back to this, now I can't remember now. When I think of it, I'll send you all an email. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will entertain a motion to end this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
This concludes the 11 July meeting of the Environment Committee. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.